I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Welcome everybody. You feel free to chat between each other because a lot of you guys are just really experienced, and you've known me for years, and I've known you for years, and you guys probably ought to network a little. I mean, it never hurts to network, right? Because that's how other deals get done sometimes. Deals that may not get put together, like the one I did with Fumduck. That would not have gone together if if I had not reached out to him and asked him to help me out on the deal. And of course, he did. And let's get in. We left off in our last training, where we drawn up a purchase contract. We formatted the purchase contract online, and then we got it out to we're getting to the point where we need to get our purchase contract to our seller. So we've made a deal with our seller. The seller's agreed to our pricing, and now we need to get that out. So what we did is we printed out the contract, and let's see. I'm going to go in here. Let's see. Did we cover that? I think we did. I'm still going to go in here because I'm going to bring this screen up here. I'm going to log in first, so I'll bring the screen up after I log in. So in our members area, we have this as an automated system, but this is your standard, and I'm sure most of you have access to a sales contract. Yeah, because the last part I wanted to show you was drawing up that purchase contract. So this is your, when you put your deal together, everything comes out in the format of what you need that you don't even have yet. You're not even there yet. All right. So like we're at a closing statement, but you're not ready to close yet. All right. So, but it's already printed out for you. That way you can save this entire thing. You just highlight it and save it to file, so it's ready for you when you do get to there. So this thing kind of creates all the future paperwork you need, including cover letters, memorandums, which we'll cover later, and notary request, HO banks statement request. So everything. But right now, all we need is this one document, because we are buying a property from a seller that has agreed to sell to us. And now that I am doing this, I do remember we covered this on the last one, so I'm not going to cover it again. So we went in and showed you how to just take this one document, paste it into Word, and go with it. So let's move on. And we're going to move on to the point where we put this into an envelope, and I'm going to show you my system. Because I want them to send me back. I want them to sign it and send it back to me. So the cover letter will say basically that. And then I'm going to print off the document. It'll be 2 pages. It'll be the contract and it'll be the cover page, giving them instructions on what to do. So you've got to, don't think you can send a sales contract to somebody and they know what to do. They don't. You've got to tell people exactly what to do. This is just something I found out, and it's just human nature. And if you don't do it, then they don't know for sure what they should be doing. And then they don't do it, and you don't have a deal. So get used to telling people the next steps of what they need to do, which is the cover letter. The cover letter will say, review, please, do it nicely. Please review the enclosed sales contract. And if it's acceptable, sign it at the bottom, keep a copy for yourself, and mail me back a copy in the envelope that is enclosed. That's it. So it's 2 documents on the envelope, and And now you've got a very clean, very easy to understand. And this seller, it's thinking in the mind already. I like working with this person because this person makes it easy. And we're going to always make it easy. And that's why we get deals done. All right, so our next step, we've sent off that. Next step, we've got to order our title search online. So if you're starting out, and you guys hear me all the time, I don't go through title companies. I don't use title companies. I have. I'm not saying I don't always. I'm just saying these days I don't. But when you're starting out, you better use a title company, or you better use a lawyer, or you better order title online. All right, so there goes my warning right now. Eventually, yes, you'll probably, and very quickly, you're going to get to the point where you don't need a title company, and you're kind of crazy if you do. I'm not saying totally crazy, but a little crazy. Maybe slightly more than a little crazy. Why? Because it doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make risk sense. There's no risk there when you do it the right way. So, but you've got to get there. You grow there, right? So, do your first few deals and go through a title company, which I'm not going to advocate. I'm going to show you a different way today. All right. There's a variation to still keep you out of the title company process because they eat you alive with fees, and they slow your deal down to a snail's pace. So there is a better way, a way to get this deal done quickly. You're on top of it, you're in control, but somebody else is helping you do the deal and making sure it's all done right. All right, so that's the idea behind it. So what is that process? The process is we go online and we order a title search. I'm going to pull up this company, see if I can pull them up. I should be able to pull them up, and then we'll go there and take a look at what we're talking about. And we're here. All right, so I'm going to pull this up. So this company is called Pro Title USA, and I like this company. One of the reasons I really like this company is because of this little book right here called Bulletproof, and I'm going to suggest that you probably buy it. You're new. You need every bit of ammunition you can get when it comes to understanding title. And I think this book will give you a lot of extra information. My book gives you the lowdown on the land business only, but this is probably going to go into a little bit more and stretch your learning abilities a little bit more. And so the owner of this title company wrote this book. So where are you going to go learn what you need to learn in this business? Go find somebody who's been doing it 5 years or more and listen carefully. All right, so there it is. It's not that expensive. I almost bought it, except I probably know everything in there already. So otherwise I would, but that's why I'm suggesting you buy it. You should know everything in there too. Okay, so this is where you go to order title online. And the idea here is that instead of going through a title company, go through the process that a title company will go through. So when you take your deal to a title company, a lot of times you're dealing with lawyers, what you're dealing with, who owns a title company, and they hire some staff to staff up, right? And then they get a license to write title, to buy and resell insurance is kind of what they're doing, kind of brokering like an insurance. So that's kind of what a title company does. It's just an accumulation of these entities. And so what you can do is you can use the parts of what a title company does. You can do it yourself. So one of the things that the title company does is they will order title through usually their parent company. But if they don't have a parent company like First American, their local title owner, who may be a lawyer, who owns the license under their license, will order back through the company, and they will provide them the title insurance. And then they make a little profit on that. So, for example, a title insurance may cost $200. on a deal like this, but then it costs another $200 to run the search. So now you're in at 400. And then the title company will also need to charge some escrow fees so they can make a profit on top of the little bit of profit they made on each of those other items. All right, so they try to make a little money on each item where they can. They can't make it on everything, but they can on some of the things. And then by the end of it, they're padded up and they're making, hopefully they're making decent money for them. But it's money you don't need to pay, right? So we're going to cut through what they do and look at what they do and just get what they do done as cheaply as possible. So what they're doing, they're ordering title search. So instead of ordering title insurance, and we're not living in this property long term, we don't need insurance. Think about that again. We're not living in this thing long enough to need title insurance. In fact, if we do a back-to-back closing or a fast closing, which is a double close, we aren't even there maybe more than a few days. So what could go wrong? Especially if you're not closing through a title company on the other side. So now you're in there and out. But what you need to do is be aware you should protect your end buyer, the buyer buying from you, from a possible issue coming back and biting them. So how do you do that without insurance? Because it's up to them. They can buy insurance anytime, by the way. So let me make this clear. If they close with you because they're getting a great deal, and that's exactly what's going on, they're buying, in essence, a wholesale deal or a discounted deal, they can still turn around at any time after that and go buy insurance. And now it's even cheaper because all they have to do is pay that insurance, and they don't have to pay the escrow fees and all that other stuff that they charge for holding people's money. So when you put a deposit down, you put earnest money down, that type of thing, that's where the escrow fees start to come in. But if you're going, you can literally call up a title company and say, hey, I need to order. Now, not all of them, right? Because they want to make some money, but you will find one if you just keep trying. Call them up and say, look, I bought this property, but I want title insurance. I didn't buy it. Title insurance when I bought it, I want to do it. And what will they do? Well, they'll run a search and then they'll issue title policy. So maybe $400 or so, whatever. But that's what they can do at that point. But going in on this flip basis, we don't need to do all that. Our job, though, is to protect the end buyer so they don't come back and sue us. So we don't want that happening either. And if you get my book, Trust for Real Estate Investors, Living Trust for Real Estate Investors, it goes to show you all the protections that we have to prevent that from happening, even if something goes terribly wrong. So this is why I'm an advocate of that book over and over. I think every real estate investor needs to have that book, because you're absolutely crazy if you don't, because you are going to get into a lawsuit at some point. You just do. All right. You make enough money in this business, somebody will sue you, and you just don't know when that will be either. So hopefully it's not for a long time, but you want to be ready and prepared. Now, if you do it right and you set up your trust right, you may not even get sued, because they're going to say, oh, this person doesn't have anything. Why are we suing them? All right. So that's kind of where you want to get to as well. Okay, so we're back here on Pro Title. We've kind of come up to the idea now that we just need to order title to, in essence, protect our end buyer when we sell to them. So we want to make sure that we're not selling them something with liens or anything that could come out of the past and create a problem for them and in a way back to us. So we order a title search. So that's the street. Delete and enter the city. And state, Florida. All right, so let's go see what it says. Oh, click to see prices. All right, so current title search $55, 4 hours, speed it up 4 hours, which you don't need, 35. So water sewer account balance, this does your city permit, building violations and code enforcement, $75. You can speed it up for another 35. So basically it's 55 and 15 and 75 total to get your current situation on it, but this doesn't include going back on the title. It just tells you what it just looks at the current owner, which for a lot of you, this is kind of all you need, because oftentimes they got insurance when they bought it, or they bought it long enough, it doesn't really matter anymore, and you're good to go. So I mean, this is the inexpensive way out of it. And then the next way, let's see if it's still in there, would be to get a 30-year search. So let's click on that and see what the pricing is on that one. So 30-year search is $125. Then you get to add the 15 account balances. That's water and sewer. You get the city, building, and code violations for $75. And so that's pretty inexpensive. Now that is a great deal, okay? So if you're beginning, this is what I would suggest everybody do. Get a 30-year search on it. That way you know you're not going to have a ghost from the past coming up with that. All right, so thanks, Michael, for giving us that so we could go through and see that sample played out a little bit more. My suggestion, because they start out at like, I think $130 or so. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it in a while. And then it goes up to close to 200 to 300, I think, with a full blown. Now the full blown is going to give you this. It's going to give you not only the title exam, but it's also going to go through and pull out any kind of code violations, any kind of other, and the code violations could be city codes violations, county code violations, bankruptcies, anything currently filed against them. So it's a very thorough title search. So if this comes back and it says this property is clean, then you're good to go. There's again, why are you going to pay for a title? You don't need to. And I just don't even want my buyer ordering title, because then that slows down my process. Now, will I and have I? Yes, I have. But then I go back to them and I say, look, if you want to go through a regular title closing, then I need to charge you another $3,000, because you're going to make me wait another month possibly to get this thing closed. And now you're tying up my investment money. And I sold to you at a discount so we wouldn't go through a title company. And I'll show you a title report showing that we've got clear title. But if that's not good enough, then, and you want to elect to go there, I'll do it, all right? But I just need now you're buying retail, all right? So you're still buying under price at $3,000 more, but we'll tack on $3,000 and we'll do it. 9 times out of 10, almost 95% of the time, they'll say, "Nah, okay, forget it. We'll just go forward." And of course, I do remind them. And by the way, you can always order title later. You don't need to order it now. So you see that it's got a clean title, and then you can go forward. All right, so how do we do this? Because the other side of this, we order title, but we also, and this is more on the buyer side when we get to the buyer, and we're going to cover that when we get there. But I'm going to show you then how to bring this deal to a lawyer's office instead of you trying to close it. So there's 2 different ways you can close. You can do what I call a courthouse closing, which is what I do almost. Well, it's a lot most of the time, because I'm either closing by mail or I'm closing at a courthouse. Now, with a seller, we always close by mail, or we meet them maybe at a bank. We hand them our check, get notarized, and we're done. So that's the idea behind that. But we have, let me just make sure what we're doing and where we're at. So I want to make sure that we're not missing any little thing here. Okay, Colin. All right. So we've got we're to the point now where we've got everything basically on done with the seller. We've ordered the the only thing we haven't done, and we'll get to that after we do the sell. All right, so I'm going to show you how to close now with the seller when we get to that point. So we're not there yet. I'm taking you just step by step through exactly how this deal is going to flow, how almost all your deals will flow. All right, so at this point, we're not closing yet with the seller. We won't close with the seller until after we sell the property. That's generally how I do it. Now, once I go through it, you'll see if you want to close faster, maybe you've got a deal where you're buying it for $500 or $200 typically, right? Then yeah, you just do it now and close and use that method that we're going to cover when we get there. But right now we're not there. See, all we're doing right now is we got that sales contract in the mail to them, and we're waiting to get that back. So now they sign it and they send it back. So now we receive it back in the mail. And a couple of other options. Sometimes I will tell them, depending on, you just gauge them, right? You gauge them when you're talking to them. Sometimes I'll say, well, when you get that and you sign it, if you want me to speed this up a little bit more, just take a shot with your camera, picture of that sales contract after you sign it, and text it back to me, and I'll start the process while you're mailing it back. Okay, that right there could save you 4 days and speed up your deal by 4 days. Just saying that. So keep that in mind. All right, so now we'll assume at this point you've got one of those two things back. You got a text, which is a legal document showing the signature. You signed it already before you sent it out. They signed it. You've got a legal document. You're ready to go. So now you can start selling it. So we now have transferred the legal right for you to sell this, because you're going to double close it, which has passed a certain amount of ownership to you. You've got an equitable ownership in the property. And I'm not even going to open that can of worms because it can go all over the place. But the way that I've drawn my contract, and if you're using my contract, we kind of double down on that idea of the equitable conversion that's taken place. This is an idea that I introduced, by the way, into the industry. I didn't introduce it into the law. Let me make that clear. I didn't create the law. But back in the 1990s, 99, no one was using the idea of using equitable ownership to maintain that they had a right to sell a property that they did not yet own. And they were getting hammered. Like all across the country, the local board of realtors were hammering the local people who were flipping property like that and doing essentially a flip, like a wholesale flip. They were just hammering them, saying, no, you're acting as a real estate agent. All right, so I went to the law library and spent hours in there researching until I figured it out, how to cure that problem, and it made the IP, which I became very famous for, possible. That's the whole idea behind that. It's all because of that. I published it. I put it out there. And by 2005, it was just disseminated all over the country. Everybody was using it. By 2009, it was just common knowledge. Oh, well, we can claim equitable ownership. And by then, you stopped. Everybody stopped going after investors. So everybody enjoyed really a lot of free time flipping properties without having a fear that the real estate commission would come after you, which they did. They even came after me several times saying, hey, you're teaching people to practice real estate without a license. And I said, well, here's why that's not true. And I'd point out this stuff and send it back, and they say, oh, okay, well, never mind. And they drop it and go on. The same thing with the Board of Realtors. And so all of our students were doing the same thing. Well, eventually, every title company in America realizes, oh, yeah, it's equitable conversion. You have ownership. So that was an idea that I brought to the industry. It did not exist in this industry before. No one understood it. No one did it. And it became mainstream. And you have probably all these wholesalers doing deals right now because of that. So I'm happy to have found it. All right. I'm happy to have realized, oh, I can make that argument. And we did. And we did in several court cases. That's how it became natural and accepted everywhere. And now, only just now in the industry, have certain real estate commissioners come back and said, wait a minute, you know, does that really apply? I don't think so. We can make an argument this way and that way. And they have, and they've done, and they've basically shredded that down. So now wholesalers can't really claim equitable ownership in a lot of states. Ohio, Texas, for example. And they're all follow at some point. That's just the way they work. But if you're doing a double closing, you still can, all right? Because you are going to take title to it. Therefore, you are playing on this equitable ownership type of basis. So we're still fine. The way we close these land transactions, we're still fine doing it. So we're not in the wholesale business and the land business. So we still have that ownership ability and the claim of that. All right, let's carry on. So we get the we get to the point where we need to now get a plat map of this, and I'm going to let me do it. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead and pull up one. And I just want to talk briefly about the plat map because it's very important. Let me say it's extremely important. Okay, so this is basically what a section of a plat map will look like. And it's going to describe the lot that you're dealing with. Okay, so this these are the and so I just want to give you a brief idea, because when you're selling it, and that's the process that we're in. All right, we need to work from the plat map. So our next steps are all going to depend on this plat map. And I think before I do this one, let me pull up this one instead. Okay. No, I don't like that one either. Let me pull this one up. Yeah, this one's got much better detail. Yeah. All right, so let's go in here and look at some detail. Okay. So a plat map is going to show you the lot, and it'll show the road. All right, so we've got the road here. And then it's going to lay out each individual lot, and it's going to give you some information about the lot. All right, so on the last session, I wasn't kidding when I was talking about becoming your own surveyor, unlicensed surveyor. I'm certainly not anywhere near a decent surveyor. I could never do a survey work, but I can survey, just like you can survey. I will teach you now in about 5 minutes how to be your own surveyor. So now you can do your own surveys. Because we are not licensed, we're not trying to create a survey, we'll never write this up. We're not going to do anything other than go find these two lot lines right there, that one and that one. That's what it means in my definition to be a surveyor, our own surveyor. I need to be able to go out there just like you as an investor and figure out where along this brush line, and there could be trees, the solid trees from here to there with nothing in between. So how do you figure out where your lot is when all you can see on both sides of the road are a group of trees that go from one end of the street to the other because maybe there's nothing developed in here? How do you figure out which 100 foot of space is yours? So let's look at it and let's break this down. We need some definitions of how these plat maps are done. They're very consistent everywhere. So once you learn it, you got it. Okay. So in the middle of a lot, you will always see a number. That's going to be your lot number. We've got lots 17 through 20 right here. Okay, and across the road, they bounce up to 34. If you see a big number with a circle and it's in a whole section of lots, that's usually your block number. So this is block 16, lot 34. You guys are going to be looking and finding a lot over your future. You're going to be looking at so many of these lots that we flip this will all become second nature to you. So you're getting your first whiff of it right now. Um, we've got block 5, lot 20. All right. So, um, and in this case, we've got up here, we've got like a cul-de-sac on that one, and that's in block 16 still. And we've got those lots. So you'll never have two of these numbers in the same block. So if you do see that, you're actually looking at the wrong block. Anyway, so let's go back and let's take a look at. Let's see. Okay, so let's take a look at a lot and break this down further. So we've got the main road that goes through the subdivision, right? So it starts at the intersection of a street that goes this north and south and east and west. So the street is here, and at some point on the map, maybe not on this one, but on another one, in the plat that you'll actually see what the road width is right here. And typically here, it's 60 feet. 60-foot road easements is what we have all throughout most of our county. And if you're on a really small road, it's typically a 30-foot easement. And that's very important to know, because I'm going to come back and show you why we need to know that. All right, and then for the most part, the lots that we're buying, that's it. Those are the two measurements that you need to mark down and kind of memorize, but find out what they are for your area, because I'm not gonna say this. Now, this is when we do these higher end lots that I like, when we're talking about $7,000, $5,000 lots that we're buying and up. All right, and now we're actually going out there. The lots below that, a lot of times I'll never go out there. All right, so you don't need to know a lot of this, but you still need to know some of it. All right, to be able to get to exactly how to get your lot corners, these corners right here. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple different ways to do it. All right, so let's keep going with the definitions here. So what we have here is a lot frontage to the road. This is your main road, and you'll see a lot of times in subdivisions, they'll back up another lot to this lot. Let's say this is your lot number 20. So you've got a lot behind there before you get to another road. So that's just a real common setup, because they don't want to put multiple roads through there. It'd be crazy. You only need one frontage to a property. All right, so we've got the frontage, and when we're advertising, this is what we refer to as a frontage. So when you see frontage on an ad, this is what it's referring to. It's referring from here to there. And on this one, and on most of the plats you're going to see the 100-foot. In this case, is 100-foot. That's the footage from this point to this point. And you'll see it all up and down here. And in here, they repeated it. But you will see some maps where this will be blank. Blank, 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 blank. And you'll wonder, well, why is... I don't know what the footage is. Why didn't they tell me what the footage was? Well, they have a little shortcut slang in the plat-making world of surveyors. And what they do is if there's 100-foot frontage over here from this point to this point, and this lot's 100, that lot's 100, that one's 100, 100, 100, 100, and this one is 75, okay, the way they'll do it is they'll leave this one marked 100, they'll leave that one marked 100, and they will leave these all blank. And what that's telling you is that every one of these lots that are blank equal to what that lot is and what that lot is. So if it's 100, that means all of these are 100. If you only have this one you're looking at, that means all of these are 100. So that's how they work it when you see a blank. So that's the other thing you will see. And why you won't see 100 here and all these are blank and this one is 75. You'll never see that, because now that's telling you, because you don't know, what does that mean, all of these are 75, or does that mean all of these are 100? Yeah, you can look at the side of it, but that's not going to happen. So as long as they have two lots in a row that match, then everything in between is the same. All right, let's get back to our lot. Let's look at lot 20 here instead. So lot 20, we have 100-foot frontage. We have 100 foot on the back side, all right, and that 100 foot is obviously the back side of that guy's lot, which is always going to be equal to our lot most of the time. And then you have this other little line. You see this little, it's a little marked space line through here. And you'll usually find this little terminology somewhere along that line. This is called building line. So it's a 50-foot easement from here to there. That's 50 foot, 50 foot, all up and down. Every one of these lots in the entire subdivision will have this 50-foot building line. And it's an easement, meaning you cannot put your house up here in this area. You have to be 50 foot behind this line. So if you're selling a piece of property and you pull this plat out, and at some point you will, because you'll need to give this to the buyer, and you should give it to the buyer. And I'll tell you where to get this map in a second. What you're going to do is you're going to tell them, all right, here's your lot number 20. It's 100 foot on the back, on the front, 100 foot on the back. And here's your side measurements. It's 200 feet deep. And here's your building line. You have to build, whatever you build, you got to build it 50 foot into your lot. So you got to have their house somewhere back in here. So that's your responsibility. You know, I consider that, legally it's not. Ethically, it is your responsibility to make sure they know all this. Now, when they get to that point, they'll figure it out, because the people, the professionals that are dealing with them are going to come in here and do it. But I think because some people kind of jump the gun and do things the wrong way, and that's a very expensive mistake, to lay a house up here in the front, or to move, if they're moving their own house, for example, or decide to construct their own whatever barn, I don't know, but just, you know, it was not right for you not to tell them that. So just be sure to get your plat map, and now you know enough to get that. Now, real quick before I get into how do we find out where this 100-foot space is on a line full of trees. I'm going to answer that in a second. But before I do that, let me go over where you get this map at. You get this at your tax assessor's office. You've got 2 offices in every county that deal with taxes. You've got what we call the tax office. They're responsible for collection of taxes. They're not about the mapping of what gets taxed. The tax assessor's office is in charge of deciding, or the mapping, and they will have this map in their office somewhere. So the first time you do this, the best thing I would recommend is you go down to your tax assessor's office and ask for some help on giving them the legal description and pulling that plat. You're going to ask them, what are you doing? How do I do this myself? Because I have other deals I'm going to be doing. How do I do this? And then let them then explain. Don't just sit there and watch them, because you're not going to learn anything. And once you do that, you can pull these yourself. And that's where I got this map. I went down there and pulled it. Then I take a picture of it. You can ask them to make a picture, or photocopy, and they will. Or you can pull out your phone or your tablet and take a picture. And take a picture of as much of the subdivision as you can, because you're probably buying more property in that subdivision. It saves you the next trip. Okay, so now you know where and how to get this plat map. One other place you can get this plat map oftentimes is in the deed of records, because that's also filed on the deed of records. And if you have the ability to search individually for plat maps, which sometimes you do, then you can pull up a whole plat map and print it off. And you don't even need to go to the office then in that case. All right, so there's a couple of variations for you. All right, back to what we were talking about on how do we find this thing. And this is part of being our amateur surveyor. We do our own survey work, right? So let's pretend like this has not been developed all the way up to lot 16, and that's where the first house is that's in this subdivision. And that's very common. So you won't find a completely empty subdivision in what we're doing. It does happen very rarely, but it might only be because there's 1 or 2 houses or whatever in the entire subdivision. I mean, I've seen that, but for the most part, that's not the case. So for the most part, there's going to be a house somewhere or development taking place. So now we have a couple of different queues. we have a house that's being built over here. Therefore, they would have cleaned this off. Therefore, they would have also maybe at some point put a fence line, or there may be some marking where they've marked it themselves at some point when they had a survey done. If they're smart, they would have buried a pin, let's say a pipe. A lot of them will take a steel pipe or lead pipe, but I take a steel pipe and drive it in the ground and leave it sticking up a little, right below where you would hit it with a mower. Okay, so that's kind of how they do it. In which case they would have it right here on this little extra line. This is like a drainage. This little dotted line here for this subdivision, it's the drainage area, so that's what so that lot line is going to, that oftentimes they'll put their post right here for a fence line, so that's where the post will be, but a pin may be driven over here. Also over here in this area will be telephone poles, and oftentimes the utility, another hint of where this would be, is oftentimes the telephone company will bury their telephone pole right on or pretty close to the lot line when that happens. So now you've got a couple of different references. I don't like to go off telephone poles, but it gives you an indication of where to look from there. And usually it's within a foot or two of that telephone pole. That's how close they'll get it. They're just estimating it as well. They know they've got easements. They can do whatever they want, but that's usually what they try to do. Okay, so now how do we get here? Well, we can do some math. We can do some simple addition. All right, to get back to lot 20, which is ours, we want to get to this point from something we know over here. Let's say that they have a fence line on 16. And we know that they will put that fence line pretty close to that pin. We just need an estimate. We don't have to be perfect because we're not drawing up maps here. We're just getting somebody to the point where we're saying, hey, look, all this right here, roughly 100 feet, that's all yours. That will be all yours. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do here. So you can take one of those. What I do is I have a little rolling tape measure, okay, and it's got a wheel basically. You can get them at Home Depot. It's got a wheel with a built-in measuring device and a handle, and you just run it on the ground, and it will knock out your measurements. So start here, and you go 100, 200, 300 feet, and put a stake right there. And I'll come in just a little bit. I'll go past the drainage because they will oftentimes publicly mow these drainages. You don't want them mowing over your stake. So come into the lot, past the mow line. You'll see where the mow line is, and drive your stake in there. And then one more 100 feet, drive it in there. Boom, you've got it. So that's how we can amateurish do our survey. And now it doesn't matter. All this was trees and there was no lines or anything. We know which lot was ours. All right, let's say there's no development. Now what do? Now we're stuck, right? Or maybe there was no clear fence line over here on 16. All right, so maybe there's this, you couldn't figure out where, maybe this guy cleared into this guy, it seemed like, because he doesn't look like he has 100, he looks like he has 150 feet he cleared just to keep the snakes away. So sometimes they'll come in here and take this guy's line out as well. So we can't, unless it's clear to you, then we can't really depend on that. Sometimes we'll do both. We'll do this and we'll do the second method I'm about to show you. All right, so that way we verify that this was indeed the right number, because we can verify it with a second number. So if you do two different methods of getting to this lot, side of the lot, then you're really locked in. And we're going to have one more third, but that's not that accurate. So this is, to me, this is probably one of the most accurate. So this is the most accurate if you got a pin. If you can find that pin, or you have a fence line even, that's usually close enough, because most people will put it right on the fence line. Now, why do they do that? Because the idea is that you share a fence with your neighbor, and when the fence finally gets old or needs to be repaired, you ask your neighbor to pitch in for half of it, because it's just as much his fence really as your fence. So that's why they usually will put it right on the lot lines. So this person will buy the property, they'll order a survey, and the surveyor comes out, puts in the pins, and then they put in right away, they start putting up a fence line, or they mark it with something. So oftentimes you'll see a big pole that's been driven in the ground. That's a real good indication of where your lot line is. There's nothing connected to that pole. It could be any kind of pole. I've seen everything used for lot lines. Even PVC pipe driven into the ground. It's all over the place. All right, but anyway, that's your lot line. All right, now, how else? Let's say that doesn't even exist. Well, here's how we do it. Here's your road intersection. And what do we know? What do we already learn today? We learned that this is a 60-foot easement right here for a road. This is a 60-foot easement for a road. That's all we need to know, because what we can do is take our little measuring device, our little roller wheel, walk out into the middle of the street, avoid getting hit by 18-wheelers or small cars, but start right here. It's so easy to find the middle of the street. You're looking this way, you look that way, get in the middle. Then look down this way, look here, get in the middle. Now you're right there in the middle of the street. Not that it matters greatly. You mainly need to be in the middle of the street here, but let's keep our measurements. We don't want to go this way. We don't want to go sideways. We don't want to continue down the middle of the street when we start measuring. So if you measure from over here, you're going to go straight down this edge and just stay on that edge. Then keep your measurement as close as possible. But here's how you can get really, really right on the button. Starting from the middle, we just start walking in. We know this is 30 feet because this is 60. So we just divide it in half. We know now we're dealing with 30 here and we're dealing with 30 here. So we know we're going to walk 30 feet to get to the first lot line. Then we add another 100. We're at 130, 230, and we're right there. We're going to be right here when our little gadget tells us we're at 230, and we put a stake right there. We go 100 feet more, we put the second stake. Done. That is how you work a plat map, and how you can get out there and find these properties, stake them out, and know pretty well within a good amount of probability that you're right on the line. Now, do you have to be on the line? No, and oftentimes you're not going to be. You'll be like, you could easily, even with all this, you could easily be 2 feet off. Easily. So when we're selling a property, yes, they're going to see the stakes there, but at some point we're going to say those are approximate stakes of where the property line is, okay? And but if you want it, before you build anything, before you put a fence line up, you want to order a survey. Don't order a survey until you get to the point probably of wanting to build, because then somebody will tear they'll take your stakes down and you'll lose your line and you're out the money. So I kind of caution people, if you're not planning on building here for 10 or 15 years, I'll show you how I got to this stake. All right, I'll say, okay, well, I started back over here. Here's a plat right here. I'm giving them and teaching them the same thing I just now told you guys. All right, I walked over here. It's 230 feet. Yeah, it makes sense to them. Now, are they going to order a survey? Well, they don't need to, and they probably shouldn't either. All right, this is not going anywhere. It's not moving. Unless you're in California, it might move a little, but it's going to be here. And now they can just save their money. That's $500 that they're going to save right now is what it kind of costs here. And do it right, and then they're ready to build it out. All right, so that does that. Before we move on from the survey, now I did want to show you another way. This is a way that you don't even have to go to the property. And this is how I do virtual survey work, if you want to call it that. Because after all, this is totally unprofessional. But this is how we can do something without ever having to go out to the property and get those front lot lines and convey them effectively to somebody that we are selling to, which is the whole idea here, right? So I'm going to pick a state. Now, you can just open up a Google map. I'm going to show you two methods. All right, this is the first method, using Google Maps. We'll go to the second method in a second. We pick a area. We just go in. It really doesn't matter. We were so close to Nashville. Let's go to Murfreesboro. Isn't that where they have diamonds at? Yeah, I believe this is this is diamonds. You can go dig your own diamonds out here. All right, so let's go in. And let's find some lot lines somewhere. All right, so here we are in the neighborhood. All right. Do I see any lot lines? And this is one of the reasons I have a secondary backup system. All right, let's try over here. I don't know. This looks like a, oh, it's just all commercial. Let me get back out. Let's get out of the Diamond District, okay? And let's see what we have down here. That's probably nothing. Oh, well, no, there's a lot of streets in here. All right, let's go on and see what we have here. Turn this on. And it is slow as molasses, so we just have to give it a second. Mainly that's my fault. I've got a million things open right now on my laptop or my computer, and I shouldn't have everything opened up like that. But anyway, here goes. Okay, so here's a cheating way of doing it. You can pretty much look here and see where the lot lines are. They have fence lines going back and forth. They have this. Now, in some areas, you get really lucky, and when you're in that map mode that we just came out of, Google has actually mapped it out for you. So either way, all right, this is how you're going to probably pick most of them up. And then again, we'll go to the secondary method. But we can even tell, even by the color of the yard, right? So this guy's yard looks like it's dead, and this guy apparently waters his yard. So that helps us figure out where that lot line is coming down here. Now to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to double click to get in as close as we can on the lot line, right? And then we double click again right on that edge. And down at the bottom will pop up the Google coordinate for that lot line right there. Or technically, it's not a lot line that's giving us, it just happens to be on top of the lot line. So this is Google's coordinate for this point, wherever you double click. Now, this is the coordinate down here, and the coordinate comes out in two numbers. There's a first number and a comma, a space, and then a negative, and then the rest of the number. So there's two numbers here, positive number and a negative number. And Google can find you any place in the world with those two numbers. And so can buyers. So we mark down this number so you can write it down, or the easier way to do it is to, and this sometimes works with Google Maps, sometimes it doesn't, you have to double click it. So here's what I do, and this is important. Just say the last three numbers over here that you see, 933. Now click it one time and it should put it up here. All right, so now you can copy and paste it, which you couldn't copy and paste that down there so easily. So this is the easy way to get it. And you can see that it moved a little. Okay, and that's the problem. And now it's jumping around. All right, now it's finally back to where it should be. All right, so you just got to double check and make sure that you're on the line, you know, and this number is the correct number. So just after you do this, do it again. Just do it twice. So now we're going to go get the other lot line, which is along this fence line. All right, and we can see the color difference right here and right here. So again, this, you don't have to be perfect. So I'm double clicking. I double clicked too fast and it took me right in there. So let me go back. Not sure where I was at, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to just click it once and it pops it up. Now, there is a way to copy this. I'll give it to you. Put your mouse over here under this blue thing, but not on the blue thing, and then hold down your mouse key and then go left, and you'll see it highlight, and that means you can copy it at that point. But it doesn't always work. So I'm just saying, just click it. It will pop it up there, and now you've got your lot line. Do it again. And you got your other lot line. And to get your back lot line, same thing, right? So now you've got all four lot lines under the Google coordinate. Now you can take that lot line And you can basically go to any Google map and paste it right into this address bar. So that's the idea behind that. Now that's one, that's using Google to do it. Secondly, I'm going to show you how to do this with a different source. So let me bring that other source up. And this is a video. So I made a video, and this is using Landglide, which is an app that you can download to either kind of phone that you have. And well, I'll just play this video. That way you can basically see what I'm doing. And kind of forgive the shakiness. I'm trying to balance my iPhone while filming my tablet. So you go to Landglide, you find the property, you select the map. That way you can get in closer than you can if you just have it on the satellite picture. So this allows you to really zoom in close to the lot once you get there. And then you just push your screen around until you line up the middle, which is basically where that X is, right on that corner. Then you go back to the settings button up there in the right corner, and it will open a screen down below that says drop pin. And you hit the drop pin, and it's going to drop a pin right on that corner perfectly. It's going to tell you who owns the property and all kinds of information about it. But the important part right there, you see the two numbers that you need. And you're just going to do it again and again. So you, again, lining up, and you'll see if you push it a little bit too far, you're on the other guy's property, it highlights his property. So you can just ease it back into that corner, and you're right on your corner. And then hit your settings button. Again, hit your drop pin, and that gives you your second one. Now it's keeping this all in memory while you do this, so you can get all 4 lines. And then once you get all 4 lines, if you can't read them, you can just with your fingers twist your map around on the phone, and it will line those up properly for you so that you can see all 4 corners and the numbers plainly. And then the smart thing obviously to do is just to take a quick snapshot so you have that in memory. But you can also go back to settings, and in the settings area you can go into an area there that allows you to email all that information to you. So you can just have an email to you via a CVS file or CSV file, and you can then take all that information down manually, or you'll have it there permanently. But that's how you can do it. Now, so when you're selling your property, what you're doing is you are giving the buyer these coordinates. And most buyers know this, but not all. So now you've also got to say, so make sure you have a GPS app on your phone. And I'm pulling mine open just to see what it's called again. If you download a GPS app onto your phone, then you can easily go find the corners of this. So they can just drive over there, and when they're there, they can walk over there. Obviously, you know, in something like a neighborhood like this, you can see where the lot lines are, but not in the country. So when they do that, they can go over right to the lot line with a GPS. Now I'm using GPS Tracks. That's a free download. So there's really no reason why they can't do it. Now here's the downside to the methods that we just discussed. Those coordinates can be off, easily can be off 6 feet. And I've seen them off more. But do you have a choice? No, you don't have a choice. And ultimately, it's really going to be up to them to decide, do I get the survey now? Do I need the survey? I mean, you know, so they're looking at a bunch of blank property, you know, again, is there? If they're about to build, yes, so they should get a survey before they build anything. Anybody should. But ultimately, it's them, and it's their responsibility to get the survey. And if for any reason you did, and I do know people that will get a survey done ahead of time, and then you just pass that cost on to your buyer. So you're saying, well, I'm going to provide a survey and it's X, it's $500. And we'll get to some other closing costs and how to handle that with your buyer on an upcoming training session. But that is what I had lined up on are using the GPS and the Google Coordinates system. You're all certified amateur, unprofessional surveyors. Congratulations. Okay, so let's go back into where I left off. And where are we on time? We're almost at the top, so I only have one more thing I'm going to cover here. And today, so that's placing the sign, because now we're starting our selling process. So we've got our plat map, so we've got our ammunition that we need to go out and in this next section we're going to do on next week, I'm going to show you all about that side of the business of getting everything staked out right, getting the signs up, where to put the signs, where to get the signs, what to say on the signs, tools to put the sign up with, how to talk to neighbors, etc. So that's the next thing we're going to do. One of the first things we do when we go out to put up a sign, by the way, and I'm going to close with this, because it can save you the entire process, the selling process. It save you all that time. That's to go knock on the door of the two neighbors on either side and see if they have an interest in buying. And here's how you want to present yourself. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to tell them that you're thinking about buying it and would you like to buy it, right? Because that's saying, they're going to say, oh, well, I know that guy. I'm going to call him up and I'll make a deal, and they've cut you out of the deal. All right, so that's not how we do it. If you talk to the neighbor, and I like for them to come to me, I don't really like to go to them, so I'm going to stay out there for a while and put the sign up and everything, and then hope they come over. That's the best way. But before I leave, if I see them there, they're actively there. If they're outside, then I'll say, hey, how's it going? And then I'll say, I just bought this. All right. Remember what we did? We went into contract. We took an equitable ownership. That means we bought it. We own it. We have an equitable ownership right in there. So now you are taking off the possibility of them calling the owner. But some of them know the owner, but they haven't contacted him in a long time. They haven't talked to him, whatever. But that's usually what the case is, and they're not going to if they think that you now completely own this property. So what I'll say is, I've just bought the property, and I'm going to be selling it. And since you're on the one next to you, if you want it, I can make you a great deal. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and put it up for sale. And then you know if you've got a deal or not. And the other thing is, if they approach you, now you've really got a deal. So I was putting up a sign once, and this guy, the old guy next door, comes out. He says, what are you selling it for? So as soon as he said that, price went up a little. You know how that goes. And I give him the number, and he said, I'll take it. He says, I want to control who's living next to me. I already made this mistake before, and I let somebody move in, and they party all night, and I don't like it, and I like my privacy. I'm buying this, and boom, we had a deal done. Did that quick. So what do? I take the sign back down and off to the title company. And in that case, that guy insisted on going to a title company. And since I did get a little premium, I didn't care. We went to the title company and closed it out. Okay, so we covered actually a lot of meat today. That whole survey thing there, because if you go back, remember, we told the seller, after I get my survey done, then we'll proceed to closing. And if you don't get out there to do your survey, then you haven't got the survey in yet, and that gives you one of the most perfect excuses to call your seller up and stall for more time. I haven't got the survey in, still waiting for that to come in, and then when I do, I'll give you a call. Hopefully it'll be maybe no more than a couple of weeks. We've had a lot of rain, or whatever the reason was, because sometimes it does rain a lot, and you're not going to want to go out there and schlep around in the water, and mud. And a side note, if it does rain a lot in your area, like it has in our area, I have owned a pair of rubber boots because when you're walking across those ditches, it makes life a lot easier. And you can't ever predict; you could even be dry for a while. But anyway, side note, just some of the equipment that you will eventually figure out that you that you want. We're going through everything though that you need. Because we're right there now. All right, we're at the point where we're putting stuff up on the property, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover pictures, the kind of pictures. We're going to also talk about one other way of getting the video, of getting the corners. All right, one more way of getting the corners, but we've run out of time, and I want to call it a close today. If there's any questions before we wrap it up, I will take them. John, I just closed on this one so you can use it. Oh, okay. Thanks, Michael. So this was one that Michael bought and closed on. That's sweet. If there's any questions of dimension, you can check them on the plat map with an engineer's three-sided scale ruler. That is correct. Most of the people that are going to be getting into this business, at maybe down the road, they might want to do that. I'm just trying to make it real simple, as simple as I can, and not get too complicated. But yes, there's actually, the other tool I use is a compass. I mean, you can use a compass. I'm gonna At some point I will. It'll be on one of our chat sessions. It won't be in training because you don't need it. All right, but it's good knowledge. It's good to understand what are some of those other numbers on that plat. What does that mean? How do you interpret some of that north south? All right, so I may go over that coming up pretty quick on a chat. So if you come in before the training, that's when I chat about the other stuff that it's good to know, but it's not imperative that you know. And of course, I'm doing my own deal, so I'll talk you through what I'm doing as well in those chat sessions. Well, thanks everybody. No other questions. We're going to wrap it up today, and we will see you back next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.